Good morning and welcome to the Policy Forum Virtual Policy Talks. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, thank you very much for joining us today as we unravel the Open Budget Survey. What does it mean for Tanzanians? The three processes of the Open Budget Survey, the measurement of the Open Budget Survey. So for quality purposes, we did record a video which is going to be highlighting or rather making presentation of the Open Budget Survey made by an independent of the Mr. Bonaventura Godfrey from Haki Elimu as well. He is the head of programs at Haki Elimu, who will be joining us live on Zoom. So we welcome you all, and we hope you pay attention. Prepare questions because we're going to have a session where we ask questions and give comments and give constructive inputs of the Open Budget Survey. Also live at the studio, we'll be joined by Ms. Judith Kapinga, who is the program officer at Heke Elimu. She is the Transparency and Accountability and Resources Program Officer at Heke Elimu. She's also the Assistant National Legal Advisor at Red Cross Tanzania. And also, she is the the chairperson of the Ruvuma region. So Judith is going to be live with us on studio, and we're going to have Mr. Godfrey Bonaventura on Zoom. Now, moving forward, we're going to play a video which was pre-recorded of presentation that Mr. Boni made, and then later on we're going to have him live for questions. Thank you very much. Na karibuni. Okay, play.
Is budget participation, which includes public participation to the budget process. And the third one measures budget oversight. The survey examined in 117 countries around the world. And for the Open Budget Survey in 2019, it is the 7th round of the survey. So this means there has been more than 6 surveys that have been conducted. And the Open Budget Survey 19, it is the 7th Open Budget Survey. So the methodology itself, it is different from other kind of surveys that they use perception. And the Open Budget Survey uses a questionnaire with 142 questions. And the survey is done by the independent researcher. And for the Open Budget Survey 2019, took almost 18 months. It started in August 2018. So you can imagine the amount of time it takes from the way it starts up to the completion phase. And in all the questions, each question has 4 choices. I mean, if you score A, that means you get 100. If you score B, you get 66. If you score C, you get 3. And if you score D, that means you get 0. So it depends on the amount of information that you're providing. For the Open Budget Survey 2019, it used the financial year 2017-2018, and it was conducted between April up to September 2017. The researcher used 8 key budget documents. It involves number of interviews with the members of the parliament, government officials, and you also need to go through different websites of the government to search for those information required in the questionnaire. And you also use the questionnaire itself to respond to the answers that are being asked. And the scores for the open budget survey are between 0 up to 100. So if you score 26, that means it is over 100. And it ranges between 0 up to 100 as other normal kind of surveys. The process, as I explained earlier, it is very rigorous because it takes 18 months to be completed. It starts with the researcher to fill in the questionnaire. And once that process is completed, then it's submitted to the open budget partnership for review. And once that is completed, then it is shared to the independent reviewer to cross-check the answers and also try to validate the information that have been provided, if are true or not, and going through the document as well. And then submitted to the government for review as well to validate the information in the questionnaire. And lastly, IBP has the discretion to conclude for the answers that have been provided. And once that is completed, then it goes on to the stage of releasing the findings. The key findings for the Open Budget Survey 2019. I mentioned earlier that there are 3 aspects that are measured in the Open Budget Survey. The first one is budget transparency. The second one is public participation in the budget process. And the third one is oversight aspect in the budget process. So if I start with area number 1, which is budget transparency, you can see 8 key budget documents were used in the assessment to measure whether all these documents are publicly available or not. And it tries to measure the comprehensiveness of the amount of details in the budget document. So providing the document only is not enough. It measures again the amount of details, the content that are required as per international standards of IMF or OECD. It also measures the timelines. When was that document released? The key findings. Our score for Tanzania in the OBS 2019 was 17 out of 100. What does that mean? It means Tanzania provides the public with scant budget information. Because out of the 8 key budget documents that are supposed to be public available, only 3 out of 8 key budget documents were made available. And you can see in the trend, at least our trend has increased. It used to be 10, but now has gone up to 17. This is the positive trend. But what does that mean? Out of the 4 documents that have been made available, at least this year 1 document has been added as compared to the Open Budget Survey 2017. Because in 2017, only 3 documents were made available. But this time, 4 documents have been made available. As you can see, in the Open Budget Survey 2017, only 3 documents were made available. And 5 documents were not made available. In the OBS 2019, 4 documents have been made available. That's why it has made the trend to go up from 10 to 17. But this is not good at all because it shows that the public is provided with very scant information. And the documents that were made available for the OBS 2019 are 1, pre-budget statement. The second one is enacted budget. And the third one is citizen budget. And the last one is audit report. So the documents like executive budget proposal were not made available. The other one was in year reports, mid-year reports, and year reports. So out of 8, only 4 documents were made available to the public. On the comprehensiveness of the budget information, you can see the audit reports had a lot of amount of details. And even the pre-budget statement scored 8 and 9. Civil budget scored 75, enacted budget scored 72. But still, if we improve a little bit for these documents, our score probably can increase in the next round of the Open Budget Survey. Why Tanzania's score dropped in 2019? The executive budget proposal was not made available. And this is the biggest document that has more questions in the methodology, because out of 109 questions, almost half of the question comes from the executive budget proposal. So which means if we produce this document and we make it available, our score can go up. Why is the score in Tanzania is not good, or it is dropped in the last two rounds of the Open Budget Survey? It is because we are not publishing timely the executive budget proposal. And why that is the case? Because in the questions that are included in the OBI, Open Budget Index, which are 109, almost 50% of the questions are in the executive budget proposal. So if you don't publish these documents, which means you lose half of the score. And by losing half of the score, that means your OBS becomes low, because if you don't produce, that means 53 questions of the Open Budget Survey will be marked D. And if they're marked D, that means you score 0 for 52 questions. And if you score 0 for 52 questions, in the Open Budget Survey that used the normal average, that means your score can be low as well, because even the questions that you score 0 are also included in the calculation of the average score. But if you remember, in the Open Budget Survey 2015, the executive budget proposal was published. That's why our score was high. It was above 45. But because in the 2 years, 2017 and 2019, we have not been in a position to publish the Open Budget Survey, the executive budget proposal, then our score went down to 10, and now it is 17. It is 17 because at least this time we've been able to publish the citizen budget, which was not published in the Open Budget Survey 2017. What is our performance in the East African communities? Uganda is doing better, Kenya is also doing better, Rwanda is doing better. So Tanzania is trailing behind Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. For example, our score now is 17, but Uganda is leading the EAC with 58 score. Kenya follows up, and then Rwanda. But surprisingly, Rwanda is now beating Tanzania in the OBI score, but they were scored very low in the last round of the Open Budget Survey. So this is something that we also have to ask ourselves. What is so special happening in Tanzania that is making our score to continue going down while other countries in the EAC are moving up? The second area was public participation. Public participation, it measures the opportunity the citizens are given to engage in the budget process. What is our score? Our score is 9 out of 100, and which means we have dropped from 15 to 9 in 2019. Our score in 2017 was 15, but now it is 9. What that means? That means the public is given very minimal space to engage in the budget process. And that means as well, the public participation in the budget process is weak. What is the situation in the three areas? The executive, legislature, and supreme court institution. The executive scored 13. That means it gives very minimal space for the public to engage. Legislature scored 22, which means executive and the legislature provides very minimal space for citizens to engage in the budget process. Because our score for the two areas in the executive legislature is below 30%. Government scored 13 and the legislature scored 22. What is the situation for public participation in the EAC in 2019? Tanzania score, it is 9, but you can see in Uganda is 22, Kenya is 20, Rwanda is 15, Tanzania is 9, South Sudan is 11. So we are still also trailing behind 3 countries in the EAC. And the third area, budget oversight, which measures the strength of the oversight institution in the budget process, the extent to which the Supreme Court institution and the legislature exercise their role in the budget process, especially in the planning and in the implementation and reporting as well. What is the score for Tanzania in the Open Budget Survey 2019? Was 33 out of 100. And again, our score here is dropped from 41 to 33. What does that mean? That means the Supreme Court institution and the legislature provide limited oversight in the budget process. But if we try to disentangle the two between the Supreme Court institution and the legislature, then you can see the legislature scored 31 out of 100. And it has also dropped from 37% to 31% in 2019, which means again, it's the weak oversight. What are the key issues that need to be done to improve the oversight? The legislature does not examine or publish reports on in-year budget implementation. That's why our score is lower. The legislature committees does not examine or publish reports on the audit reports online. That's another issue that is examined in the Open Budget Survey, and it makes our country to score low. And the budget oversight by Supreme Court institution, the score is 39, which again is weak, but there are key issues that has made our score to remain 39. The head of Supreme Court institution is not appointed by the legislature, which the best practice required the Supreme Court institution head to be appointed by the legislature. The audit process of the Supreme Court institution are not reviewed by the independent agents. So these are the two issues that are making our score to continue to be low. So and they continue to make the Supreme Court institution to lack a lot of independence. What is the score of the Open Budget Survey on the area of oversight in the East African community? Again, Tanzania's score is 33, but Rwanda is 65, Kenya is 50, Uganda is 59. So that means we're still trailing again in the EAC. South Sudan is 43, which means Tanzania's score is even below South Sudan. Burundi is 18. So there's something that we need to work to improve the budget oversight in the EAC. What are the key recommendations now? I've pointed out the key areas of the research, which are budget transparency, public participation, and oversight of the budget process. We've seen the picture that our score in both areas are lower. Our score in the budget transparency is 17, and it's lower than other countries in the EAC. And the public participation, our score is also low than other countries in the EAC. And the oversight of the budget process, again, our score is also low than Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, and even South Sudan. But what can we do to improve our score in the next round of the Open Budget Survey? There are 5 things that can make Tanzania to improve in our score in the next round of the Open Budget Survey. The first one, in order to improve budget transparency, there is a need to produce and publish online media reports, year-end reports, and the executive budget proposal. If we publish this, our chance to increase our score in the open budget is high to move even above 50. I explain earlier that, for example, if you are able to publish the executive budget proposal, then your score out of 109, which means your score can be marked either C, B, or A, and not D, which is 0 for all the questions. The other area that we also need to improve is to improve the comprehensiveness of the budget documents, to make sure that the kind of documents that we release have a lot of details that are required as per international standards. The second thing that we recommend in this report is to establish accessible mechanism for capturing public perspectives in the budget process, in all the aspects. In the budget process, public participation, and budget oversight as well. The other thing is to establish formal mechanism for the public to participate in audit investigations. This can also make our score to improve, especially in the budget oversight in the area of Supreme Court institution. And the last point of recommendation, it requires the legislature to approve or remove the head of the Supreme Court institution. This is something that will need discussion, because it limits the independence of the Supreme Court institution. So that's why the report recommends the Supreme Court institution to be appointed or removed by the legislature or the judiciary. Having said and presented the Open Budget Survey findings and recommendations, I thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope key stakeholders that are going to use these findings of the report are going to play their part to engage in different ways, either with executive or the members of the parliament, and try and find out how can we make use of the findings, especially the recommendations, to improve the scores for Tanzania. If the budget is open and if our score is high, it is good for the country, because if our budget system is open, then it gives high rate in credit system, easy to access credits and loans from multinational companies or different developing partners as well. If the system is open, then it limits chances of corruptions and the like as well. That's why the report emphasizes a lot to increase transparency in the budget process.
Insightful, right? Yes. The presentation was mind-blowing. I, I always use this word because there are things in there that I wasn't aware of. For example, we have a regression from 15 on the public participation from 15 in 2017 to 9 in 2019. So what needs to be done actually? I did mention earlier on that we have the presence of Miss Judith Kapinga at the studio, and we also have live on Zoom the independent researcher of the OBS, Mr. Bonaventura Godfrey, who is going to be joining us live on Zoom. So we're going to go on a short break so that we can digest what we've just heard. And then I'll have with me, side by side, Ms. Judith Kapinga, who is the program officer at Haki Elimu on transparency, accountability, and resources. And she is also the Assistant National Legal Advisor at Red Cross Society in Tanzania and the chairperson of the Ruvuma region. And as I mentioned earlier on, I have with us live on Zoom Mr. Godfrey Bonaventura, who is the person, the man behind the OBS in Tanzania, the researcher who conducted this research from Tanzania. We're going to go on short break. Please digest, prepare your questions, and then join us as we come back. Judith, karibu sana. And as I mentioned earlier on, Pia, we are joined by Bonaventura, who is going to be live on Zoom. Now that we're back, Judith, please give us a little introduction about yourself, where you come from, who you are, because I have introduced you, but we need to hear that from you as well. And why is it important that you as a person, as a Tanzanian, is here talking about obvious issues, and Pengito, you'll tell us about education and the health sector from your perspective and where you come from. Karibu.
Asante. As I was introduced, my name is Judith Kapinga. I'm working as Program Officer for Transparency, Accountability and Resource, Haki Elimu, an organization, a non-government organization based here in Tanzania. But also at my volunteering capacity, I work as Assistant National Legal Advisor for Tanzania Red Cross Society, and also I'm a chairperson for Ruvuma region for the Tanzania Red Cross Society. Going as to why issues around transparency, budget transparency and citizen participation are important. One, because budget affects lives of people in several ways, and depending on how resources are being allocated, raised and used, it provides opportunities to address the most pressing needs in society, including poverty reduction, which is one of the very fundamental areas that have been adopted and recognized not only by our government here in Tanzania, but also globally through the SDGs. This is why, to me, issues around budget transparency are very important, and for so many reasons as well, including one, for example, accountability. Public officials and representatives can only be best into uphold efficiency if there is clarity in public resources, but also second, issues around integrity. You know, public resources are vulnerable, not only to waste and misuse, but also to fraud. So if we are having transparency and citizen participation, we that citizens are going to be aware, and they'll conduct oversight. But also issues around inclusiveness and trust, because people have to trust the responsible officials holding such funds and implementing on behalf of them. That can only be possible if we are having transparency, but also citizen participation in the whole budget process. So I think that is why issues around budget transparency are very important when it comes to me.
Okay, so Judith, we are almost 5 years into the Vision 2025, the Tanzanian vision, like our own SDGs vision, we call it. What are the odds that Tanzania will realize this vision, the targets that we have inputted? What are the odds that we will reach them?
Okay, that really depends, but the most important thing to me, if we truly want to achieve effectively, is transparency and upholding citizen participation, because we all know government resources have always been scarce. It's only when we always know that government resources have always been scarce. So in order for citizens to fully participate and develop an aspect of the government, they truly have to understand what is being allocated, what is being implemented. So as citizens, their role to play is to complement what is missing. For example, I would say if you look at the trend in the education sector, since 2016, almost 12,000 students couldn't join Form 1 because there was scarcity in classrooms.
12,000.
12,000. Coming along into 2018, almost 133,000 students missed that. Coming along to 2019, almost 59,000 students. So you see the gap. But if we're having citizens fully aware of the budget being allocated, what's missing, then they can chip in and complement what is missing. So the whole issue of implementation is entangled into what citizens truly are aware. Of course, we are having the citizen budget being released every year, but look at the timing to where it is being released. Almost sometimes end of November or towards the end of the year, almost 6 months after the budget has been adopted by the National Parliament.
All right.
So it's a very long time, but also how many citizens do access that document, you know? So the whole issue of implementation depends on how much citizens are aware. And it's going to be a challenge to really achieve that if citizens are being lagged behind.
Okay, so there is a question of what are the timings of releasing the citizen budget, and then what are the dissemination strategies within there?
Yes.
Okay, so now coming to, you've mentioned public integrity, resource allocation. I think these are the processes of the social accountability monitoring, yes? So what is the linkage between the social accountability monitoring and the OBS score? Tell me, how does social accountability monitoring processes, if they're not well effectively executed, how does that influence the score of Tanzania?
Okay. When it comes to the score that we got, of course, looking back, the scores was high and now the score is low. There are issues when it comes to social accountability monitoring. One, we're talking about the documents that should be public. We're talking about the documents that should be public. But I mentioned one, citizen budget.
Yes.
But there are those major budget documents. First, they are being released late, even for those who are really into the, let's say for us NGOs who are doing the analysis. Sometimes it's hard to access the documents. And so even conducting monitoring, it's very hard. Also, you might find, like, for example, in education sector, the budget is in different ministries. The Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education. So getting that total budget is very complicated because, for example, TAMISEMI has a lot of sectors inside the budget. So you have to pick items in order for you to compile to get the sector budget. So sometimes monitoring is very hard, you know, because you have to really be an expert to do that. But also second, some of the documents they're missing. For example, until today, like the total sector budget, we'll know if the citizen budget is being released. It's when we'll know the total sector budget. So monitoring becomes cumbersome because we really don't know what has been allocated, the projects that are being to be implemented, and even for the last year, the expenditure reports, like what was released. So obviously, directly, if those things can't be accessed easily, it affects the score because these things have to be transparent, open, for public to access. Exactly.
So it comes to an issue of timeliness, the timely disbursement of these documents. Yes, they are being produced, but are they produced on time according to the OBS indicators?
Of course, I would say I will uphold the process because for season budget, like we are being, they involve the NGOs in the process, but again, it takes a long time to come out. So that's the problem. If it would have come earlier, then it would have helped.
Probably our score would have been better.
Probably.
Yes. I would like to invite Bonnie. Bonnie, let's have Bonnie so that he can clarify a bit of some issues. Perhaps he needs to input more on his presentation, the presentation that was made. Bonnie, can you hear me? And if you can, please, karibu.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Bonnie,
Yes.
I would like to ask a similar question that I asked Judith. Is there a linkage between social accountability monitoring and the OBS score? Please elaborate. And if there's anything else that was left out in the video, just clarify it and tell the people who are our viewers today. Anything that you want to add up, please do.
Yeah, yes, but the challenge of the OBS is one that it focuses mainly at the central level. There is no open budget survey that has been conducted at subnational level. So if we can have the OBS at subnational level, then this will be quite useful for the work of social accountability monitoring. Because if the transparency is improved, automatically people will be able to access different documents. For example, the budget proposals and the other related documents, the quarter reports, and hence they could also be in a position to analyze the document and they do social accountability monitoring. But for now, with the central level, obvious, it's mainly useful for budget analysis and trying to get some key recommendations that can also be used to engage during the pre and the approval sessions of the budget.
Okay, so what does transparency, citizen participation mean for the people, especially in the education sector? When we don't have transparency or there isn't citizen participation at the end of the day, I know Judith touched on it a bit, but I would like you to clarify this. What does it actually mean for the people?
Transparency is good for the citizens because you provide the space for them to engage. You know, budget planning has a number of processes. And if you open up your system, you're likely to help the citizens to participate in the budget process, especially in the planning phase and also in the implementation phase. They could know exactly that this is what has been planned, and they could do following up with the money as well. And if they do following up with the money, there are chances to improve expenditure management and hence improvement of service delivery. That's why the OBS calls for citizen participation, and the budget transparency and citizen participation are linked together. If you open up the system, you create a chance for people to engage in the entire budget process, from the planning phase, in the implementation phase, and also during the reporting phase. They could be in a position also to hold the executive to account from the promise that they made in the planning and the way they have been implementing the budget and also the reporting of what they have done so far to improve the services.
Okay, there comes an issue of oversight. We've seen a regression also in the oversight. Tell us a bit about that, like elaborate some more. What does the oversight, like the parliament, we've seen issues where the parliament and the former CAG, there was a bit of some, some discussions that were not really, we understand. So we want to know, why is it so important for the legislature, the National Assembly, to work with the oversight bodies? Why is that important?
It's important because, if for example the report of the Supreme Court Institution is completed and approved and then submitted to the legislature, then the legislature has the mandate now to ensure that the executive responds to all the queries that have been identified in the Supreme Court Institution report, which means in our case, the CIG report. That's why there has to be a good relationship between the two, the Supreme Court Institution Office and the legislature. And the role of the legislature here is to ensure that all the recommendations that are given from the report are discussed and are used to hold the government to account and respond to all the queries that have been included in the report. That's why the report is really emphasizing the independence of the Supreme Court institution in that way that when they prepare the report, they are also independent from the executive, that they can be open to share the report to the legislature, and then the legislature can work on the report to hold the executive to account.
Okay. Now, we are going into our elections, the 2020 general elections, and we have been doing a number of advocacies with the National Assembly, the members of the National Assembly, the outgoing committee on the budget, the Parliamentary Budget Committee. Now we're going to have a new parliamentary budget committee per se, right, after the elections. What are NSAs, the non-state actors, CSOs, let's call them, what are we CSOs doing towards raising awareness of issues, the important issues on transparency to these candidates, the people who are going to vie for perhaps presidency, councillors? What are we doing to raise awareness to them, to tell them that it's important that we have transparency? It is important that we support the Supreme Audit institutions, yeah? So what are we doing? And then Bonnie, please answer the question, and then I'll let Judy also chip in.
Sorry, I didn't hear you well. That was the feedback.
Yes, Bonnie?
Come again, I didn't hear you well. There was some feedback.
Okay, so the question is, we work with the NSAs, the non-state actors, right? We've been supporting the government, the National Assembly members, but they are outgoing now. We've worked with the Parliamentary Budget Committee where we did a similar advocacy to them. Now, I would like to know what are CSOs, non-state actors, doing towards raising awareness of the importance of transparency, the importance of oversight body to the people who are going to vie for candidacy for presidency per se, or to vie for councillor at councillor level. What are we doing currently on this? Because once they're in power, they need to understand the importance of transparency and the importance of oversight bodies, so that at least our score in the future, in 2022, that is, right? In 2022, it rises up from where we are now. It improves. It improves.
Yeah, I think it's important now to try to raise awareness on why transparency is important. That is the first point that we can also be using when we're trying to advocate for improvement of transparency in this country. I pointed earlier that the need to improve transparency is because if the system is open, there are a lot of advantages that the country can gauge. One being to be ranked very high in the credit system, and we can also be able to have easy access of loans and also kind of credit that we may demand to support our investment projects in the country. And another thing that probably we need to consider is to highlight the importance of transparency on the angle of accountability aspect, especially on issues of corruptions, and also effectiveness of implementation and management of public funds, especially in different projects, and also the improvement of service delivery. You pointed earlier the connection between transparency and social accountability monitoring. This is something that we also need to share and communicate openly, that when the system is open, I mean, from the planning phase, implementation phase, and also reporting phase, there are chances to increase the delivery of services in all the sectors, because if people are involved in the planning, that means it will consider the needs of the citizens. If people are involved in the implementation, then they will follow the money and know exactly that this is meant for this service and not for this. And if people have access to the report, the status of implementation, then they'll be in a position also to hold the executive, the extent to which they have been able to use public money to implement different projects for service delivery. That's why there's the need to connect between the transparency aspect and the social accountability monitoring, so that even the legislature, the oversight people, and the citizens and the government itself understand the need of being open in the system of budget.
Okay, thank you very much, Bonnie. We'll go for a short break. Please prepare your questions, your comments, and if you have any reviews, whatever you have, just prepare it. And then after the break, we'll come back and listen to whatever you have to say. Karibuni sana.
kuna mtu anaitwa Muhina, sijui ametoka Mataga huyo. Hello, nakusikia. Nakwambia kwenye maswali kuna comments, kuna mtu anaitwa Muhina, sijui.
Thank you very much for waiting on break. We are accepting questions from the participants. So please, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A session in box below on your Zoom. Please type in there so we can see. Rather than the chat, there's a difference between the chat and the Q&A session. So please, yes. But I will go on and read comments. There's one from Abraham. He said, thank you, Godfrey, for the nice presentation. I second your recommendation, especially on establishing accessible mechanisms for capturing public perspectives. This is a very useful recommendation. Many times, we see the government asking for opinion from professionals and the general public on the budget processes, but the means are very limiting. It's such a physical, what that is, submission of opinions. This is one among many areas we need to improve. Thank you very much, Abraham Biamungu. And we also have Hina. The oversight function should have asked parliamentarians and CSOs or NGOs and members of the public who visit the parliamentary open sessions or working plenaries. I'm not sure what that was implying to, but I'll move forward. Perhaps Bonnie has captured it and would come to respond to that. Hina as well. Okay, I hope you can hear us now. For those who have been saying that the voice is a little low, I hope you can hear us. Please text on the chat if you can hear us. I'll also go forward and read Hina's comment. Sometimes we get fixated on issues that are non-issues. How many countries in East Africa continents have the CAG appointed by Parliament? Is this also observing the separation of powers between the executive, which CAG is part of it, the Parliament, and Court of Justice? Does access imply control? Is access to the budget documents synonymous with control? There are NGOs and CSOs which also hold budget review and analysis sessions such as TGNP, Kijiwe, Chakahawa, and therefore other stakeholders, a platform. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. What was that? A platform. Can you see and if you can hear us?
Okay, I think there's the problem with the facilitator, but I may continue to read the questions and respond to some of them. There's the comment from Moses Kulaba, good consistent work over the year. From the findings, it's clear that the space for public participation oversight have been declining, and perhaps this is something that the government actors may want to reflect on moving forward. I'm particularly quite concerned with the regulation that can be seen from the line cap since 2008. It appears Tanzania has made significant progress, but this momentum regressed. Can the researcher give some ideas why this was the case? I pointed earlier that the reason for this is because before 2015, the executive budget proposal was being made available online timely. But then from the next two rounds of the open budget survey, 2017 and 2019, the executive budget proposal was not published timely. And the reason why the score has gone down, it is because the executive budget proposal has 53 questions out of 109 questions that are being used to assess the transparency. And by not publishing the executive budget proposal online, that means all the questions scores D. I also pointed earlier in the methodology, if the score is D, that means it is 0. And the Open Budget Survey Index uses the weight average to compute the score. So if the scores are D and they all are 0, they're also included in the calculations. And that's why you see the score dropped in 2017 to that level. And also it is remain lower, below 20 for this two round of the Open Budget Survey. There is another question. The study interviewed a number of stakeholders, including MPs and more. What were the comments on public availability of PFM information? And this is from Tobias Chele. Tobias Chele has another question again. Oversight score very low. What have you found as main weaknesses in the process of sharing CAG reports and discussion in Tanzania? If the study only covered national level, how can you comment citizen participation without local level participation? I'll start with the first question, that the interview with different stakeholders is to establish some of the information that are required in the documents that are available. I pointed earlier that the Open Budget Survey measures almost three things. It measures the availability of that document. It measures the timeline that document was made available. And also it measures the amount of details that are in the document. To publish the document only is not enough for you to score. There is in the Open Budget Survey relates to availability of information in the document that has been published. And that's why in some cases, when you're completing some of these questions, you also need to do some interviews so that you can get clarity of each of the information that is provided in the document. On the second question, that the reason why the score for the oversight has gone down, there are two things that are measured here. The oversight board is the legislature and the Supreme Audit Institution. I pointed earlier, there are a number of issues that have been highlighted in the report that makes the score for the Supreme Audit Institution to go down. And I would encourage, actually, for the interest of time and because the time was not enough for me to do the presentation, do the recording, then we will encourage Policy Forum to share the link in the end of this presentation so that everyone can see the questionnaire itself and the answers and the whole report of the OBS. And from this, you can be in a position also to understand the many, many issues that are included in the oversight area that makes our score to go down. There is the questionnaire itself, and there is the report itself. And then there is another comment from Richard Mush. Dr. Richard Mush, Tanzania has invested a lot on digital platform or system in parliament and government. What's your opinion on the use of this digital system to enhance participation and transparency? The issue here is the digital system is working and it's okay. The problem that we see is the time posting of these documents as per the methodology. For example, the government itself has a website, Ministry of Finance and Planning. But if you visit it today, in the part of the budget documents, you can see that there are a lot of documents that have not been uploaded up to today, and some that requires to be uploaded within 1 month after the reporting time ends. The challenge has been on how to make it to be more effective and functional. My name is Sadiq Rema, student of Bachelor Degree of Law at Jordan University, Morogoro. My question is, what does budget mean? What does budget mean? They mean cash money, or they just budgeting without cash? Now, this question is out of context. There's another question to the anonymous. Thank you, Bon, for a good presentation. I'm interested with the citizen participation. How feasible is it for citizens to participate, considering timing for the budget process? And also, there are clear mechanisms for citizens to participate in the process. Working with the grassroots LGA, I think was noted as a big setback. The last issue is on literacy level, considering the technicalities of the budget planning and monitoring process. Is it feasible for the public to participate, considering our literacy level? One of the recommendations that has been made is for the executive to create mechanism and platform for citizens to engage in the budget process, and to enable and raise awareness on how can they participate in the entire budget process. This will raise awareness and will help also the citizen to participate. But the challenge has been for the executive to establish formal mechanism for the citizen to engage in the entire budget process, in the planning phase, in the implementation phase, and also in the reporting phase. There was trying to check some question and answers here. I think I've responded to all the questions. There's another. Okay, there's question 3 from Chelek Torobi. Let me go and check it. Okay, if the study only covered national level, how can you commend citizen participation without local level participation? Citizen participation is in different levels. Even with the central level, there are chances that citizens can participate. For example, we have different CSOs that are working with the citizens. And if the CSOs can participate in the central level budget, still that can mean citizen participation. The issues that have been highlighted in the findings is lack of platform to allow citizen participation. When we say citizen participation, we don't mean someone from Balari or someone from Tamkeri, Serengeti. We mean anybody, CSOs and all other stakeholders that can engage in the budget process. That's why I pointed earlier also, there is the need again to consider another study that will also be conducted at the sub-national level, to connect the two, the study that is being conducted at national level and also the study that has to be conducted at sub-national level. Also establish the excess of transparency and the public participation at sub-national level. There's another, Gertrude Mugizi, what proportion of the budget is allocated to and spent at the national level? Gertrude, I think this is, for now, just for the interests of the participants, you know, majority of the sectors now in Tanzania have been decentralized. And on average, almost, for example, the educational sector, over 60% now is spent at the sub-national level. I don't have any information about the health sector and other sectors, but for the education sector itself, more than 60% is allocated to subnational level.
The processes that are undertaken so that people are. Bonnie, can you hear me?
No, I cannot hear you.
No, okay, so the question is that I have seen on the chat somebody asking whether the Ministry of Finance and Planning and other governmental stakeholders have been involved when undertaking this review. How is it like?
I pointed earlier that in the methodology of the Open Budget Survey, there are almost like 4 processes for the researcher to do, to collect information, to fill in the questionnaire. And then once that is completed, and then it has to be submitted to the independent reviewer, different from the researcher. And once the independent reviewer complete his part, then it's taken back to the researcher to comment and to put remarks. And once that is completed, and then there's an agreement between the researcher and the independent reviewer, then the document is taken to the government for review. And once the document is reviewed by the government, and then is finalized by International Budget Partnership to put the discretions of the answers. So in that way, the government is involved in the reviewing of the questionnaire before it's made final.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. Do we have any more questions? Over to you, Judith. Judith, please tell us. You have been working for Hakelimu in the education sector, and you also a volunteer at Red Cross Society. Now tell us on the open budget, openness, or citizen participation, when the citizens are not involved from the planning process to the implementation process, what does it mean for development projects, especially like in the health sector and the education sector? What does that mean?
Okay, good thing about citizen participation, the local government guidelines and budget cycle expressly stipulate that there has to be citizen participation from the very lowest level, so as there is bottom-up approach. Is it being there comes a question, is it really effective in terms of participation from the bottom level? And this is the foundation now. It is the foundation for citizen participation in the budget process, because all the way from the ground level, that is where people's needs and expectations are being brought up to the next level. So if this foundation is not well done, it means the budget that is going to be made won't be having people's reflection and needs.
Yes.
Now, if we do not have reflection on people's needs and thoughts, then it means, first of all, we're having a budget which doesn't touch people's lives.
Doesn't speak to the people.
Doesn't speak to the people. That's why I said from the very beginning when I was introducing what I wanted to say, I said budget affects people's lives directly. And so how resources are being allocated or resources are being disbursed, it's when you will know if people's lives are being touched or not. Now, coming to the point whereby what happens if people are aware of the budget process itself. How does it start?
Okay.
And how they can participate in the budget process.
Yeah.
And what's being allocated, what's being disbursed, what are the projects that government prioritize, then it means they can complement that gap between scarcity of resources. If they are not aware, then we cannot complement that gap. As I said, resources are always scarce. So it is important for citizens to know and being the process to be participatory, because it's when we can complement the efforts and fill the lacuna that is missing.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is also an issue of integrity as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mentioned it earlier. Issues
Yes.
of integrity, inclusiveness, and trust.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay. We do have some questions. Gertrude Mugizi, thank you, Gertrude, for joining from all the way from South Africa. What proportion of the budget is allocated to and spent at the subnational level? Bonnie, I think this question will be directed to you. If you can hear us, please. What proportion of the budget is allocated?
I responded this when you were disconnected.
Okay, thank you very much.
Probably I can continue with the other questions. I see there's another question from Moses Kulaba that has been added. Moses Kulaba is trying to understand why these documents are not published now. They were being published in the past, but now why are they not published? I think Moses, this is the issue of context now. You see the things that are the way they're happening in the country. You remember even in the past, we used to have the Bunge Live, but nowadays we don't have the Bunge Live. And so I think there are issues to do with context. And even me, I don't know why, but the context itself explains a lot with the cases that have been happening in the country for the last 4 or 5 years. That's why you see even the executive budget proposal is not published. We can try to connect some of these kind of things. For example, the Bunge Live not being casted, and hence we could also be linking up and trying to get some answers, wrong answers, right answers. But I would say the context itself explains a lot. Does the disaggregation process, this is the question from the anonymous, does the disaggregation process make the OBS process tedious or unrealistic? He means doing the national and subnational together. I think the subnational OBS needs its own methodology. There are a lot of things that need to be designed to fit in the context of the subnational OBS. So there was the pilot that was conducted some years back, but it didn't fit well because there are differences between countries, between Tanzania and Myanmar or Uganda or others. That's why it is still in the designing stage, and hence they cannot be combined together. But with the central level, the methodology is quite clear, and it has been harmonized to fit in for all the countries that are involved in the OBS. That's why you see even the scores are can be compared between country to country. There was another question from Muhina, EH Muhina. Like your question, there are NGO and CSOs which also hold budget review and analysis sessions such as PGP, Kijiwe, Chakahawa, and therefore offer stakeholders a platform to discuss and review the budget jointly. How have such sessions or platform been considered as a vehicle or trying to set up citizen participation in the budget process? The concern here on public participation is for the government or the executive to create platforms for citizens to engage in the budget process, mechanisms. There has to be a way that the government say, okay, this year we are starting the budget process. We are sharing you the timelines, the way it will go. And between this time, we would like to invite all the stakeholders. For example, we know there's TGNP, Kijiwe, Chakahawa. Please, you will have this space and this space to share, to discuss and share your concern on what should be improved. That is the way the methodology wants the government and the parliament to create platforms. You have seen in the scores for the legislature. It's a bit high as compared to the government, because within the legislature, there are platforms for CSOs sometimes to be engaged in the budget process. And that's why you see the score is almost 22 as compared to the government score, especially in the area of creating mechanisms and platforms for citizen participation in the budget process. There's another question from Richard Mushi. Uganda appears to be doing very well on most of the indicators. What's best practice can we learn from them? For example, do they have guidelines, law with guide government department on type of information that must be published? I would say yes, they have all these laws. Even in Tanzania, we have laws. We have the Budget Act that requires all these documents to be published timely. For example, the year reports are supposed to be published quarterly, 1 month after the end of the reporting time. But still, these documents are not published. So the issue here, it could be probably we don't follow up our laws, and that requires all these documents to be published. How does the OBA contribute to enhance governance access to quality service to local mwananchi? I think I responded this earlier, that OBA's Open Budget Survey Index is all about transparency issues. If the budget is open, it creates the opportunity for citizens to engage in the entire budget process. If citizens play their part in the planning, implementation, and reporting, it creates chances for including their needs, their demands. It creates a chance for monitoring the way the public money are being used, and hence it may lead to improved service delivery, and hence the local mwananchi may benefit. There are a lot of advantages of opening up the budget process in terms of effective public finance management and also effective service delivery to local mwananchi.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Bonnie, for elaborating and answering all of these questions. It is very important that the local mwananchi is also involved, because how else do you know what the citizens need if you do not involve the citizens at the first place? So we have launched a poll with 3 questions. Please respond to the questions. Just 5 minutes of responding. If you have understood now, do you understand the Open Budget Survey, and why is it important? And what is the score of Tanzania? Because Tanzania it regressed at first. In 2017, we saw Tanzania regression, but now it has gone up, although there are some regressions in aspects like citizen participation and budget oversight. Now, please respond to the poll, and then we'll come back and display the poll's answers. And then we're going to wind up. We are back with the results of the poll. We'll share them with your screens and see if we now understand what the open budget survey is. I see quite a number of people, 91% say yes, I do understand what the open budget survey measures. And what open budget index in Tanzania score is, well, 45% have said 17, which is the correct response. And do you see Tanzania's score improving in the future? We have a 50-50% chance of it improving. But we, as Tanzanian nationals and state actors, need to work hand in hand, work together in order to see this improving. So I'll take quick closing remarks from Bonnie, and then I'll come back to Judy, who's with me at the studio. I'd just like to hear, Bonnie, would you like to say something to the participants? A vote of thanks, perhaps. Bonnie, you're muted. Please unmute your mic.
Thanks. I would like to extend my thanks to the participants and also for coming up with a number of questions. There are questions that have been put down, which actually they may also reflect and bring in deep thinking on the methodology. I've taken up all these questions and then I'll share them with the IBP team, National Budget Partnership team, to see the way they can also figure out on how to capture some of the things in the methodology in order to improve more for the methodology of the Open Budget Survey 2021. And there are issues of subnational level that came out. I also share this, the team of IBP, to see if it can be fast-tracked more to ensure that the subnational level on the open budget transparency is conducted. But otherwise, I thank to all of you for participating and giving out a lot of feedback in the comments as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. I know you're away, but you took time to become a discussant where you are, as much as you were the presenter and the researcher. Thank you very much for your time. We'd like to release you to undertake any other duties that you have to embark. Thank you once again and have a very nice day. And I'll move over to Judy, but I do see a bit of some comments, so I'll read them really quickly, and then Judy, I can hand it over to you so that you can give us a vote of thanks as well. So James Mlali says, Tanzania is committed to the promotion of good governance as clearly stated in the Vision 2025 and other national, regional, and global commitments. How does the government view its declining scores in lighting of such commitments? Unfortunately, we do not have a government respondent here with us today, but we did extend an invitation to the Ministry of Finance and Planning and also the National Audit Office, Tanzania. So I hope they've picked up these questions and perhaps they will be able to respond to us. But we will also take your question forward to them. We will write to them to ask them how do they view this as it implicates that perhaps we do not have transparency in Tanzania. Now, Sally also said thank you very much for a very interesting presentation and discussion, and for you and for your work to host this important fora. Thank you very much, Sally, for the encouraging word. Now I'll move over to you, Judith. Please give us a vote of thanks, perhaps any recommendations that you have in the future. Karibu.
Oh, asante. I would first of all extend warm gratitude to Bonnie. He has well expressed what really OBS is and what is our score and all the important aspects towards us getting a score as a country. But conclusively, I would say briefly that we have a room to improve as a country because most of the issues have been set in foundation. We have the laws that expressly state what should be done when it comes to releasing public documents, including these budget documents.
Yes.
So it's it's only on the implementation part. I believe if we do really release the documents on time, the required documents on time, then our score can progressively improve in future. But I would say that budget transparency and citizen participation is the missing puzzle towards realization of better development as a country. We fill that puzzle, then I believe we will truly improve, not only in terms of implementation of the budget itself, but also in terms of citizens participating directly in developing aspects of the country.
Yes. Thank you very much, Judy.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'd like to thank you, our participants, for joining us today. We enjoy sparking such discussions to you so that you are aware of policy issues in the country. Until next time, my name is Iman Hatibu from Policy Forum. We are signing out.